the clicker. All right, very good. So this afternoon, I do plan to provide everyone an election update, and I want to provide a presentation that goes beyond just a presentation. It actually, my hope is that we are able to answer many of the questions that are coming from the public as well as our board members to ensure that we're all on the same page. So the election that we have at hand is the June 2nd, 2026 statewide direct primary election. We're actually 112 days away from that election, so a lot of work has already initiated. We're going back to December 19th when we had the signature and loop period, which is a period candidates can use to offset their candidate statement fees, their candidacy fees for nomination. And we also opened the nomination period just yesterday, Monday the 9th. So all is in motion. We are preparing a county voter information guide. The mailing does begin on April 23rd to all active registered voters. There's approximately 1.4 million registered voters, so that's going to be key as I continue through my presentation today because that's quite a bit of voters in this county. We will be providing English and Spanish versions of these books, which contain a lot of important information, vote centers, times of operation for these vote centers, vote-by-mail drop-off sites, etc. Also, we will be preparing our vote-by-mail ballots, and vote-by-mail ballots will start going out in the mail on May 4th, and these go to all active registered voters, to approximately 1.4 million voters. So a lot, again, in motion for this upcoming election. So a few other items to note is vote centers and ballot drop-off sites will also be opening through Election Day, June 2nd, 2025. There will be one location at the Registrar of Voters office, which will run for 29 days starting May 4th. Additionally, we will have 107 ballot drop-off sites that will open starting May the 4th as well. And 21 vote centers will run for 11 days starting May 23rd. We will, for the first time, pilot what is known as five super vote centers that will run for 4 days starting May 30th, and that will be one super vote center per supervisorial district. We have 5 in the county. And what these centers, how are these different than a regular vote center? Really, it's just the size. It'll be a larger footprint so that we can have more voters go to that site. We'll have more election officers working at those sites, and we will also have additional equipment to assist those voters more promptly as they go in and vote so that they have a positive voting experience. We will also be establishing 131 vote centers that will run for 4 days starting again May 30th. So a lot of activity expected. The November 4th, 2025 statewide special election actually required us to reduce the number of vote centers if we chose to do so by county. So this election, we're going back to our normal requirements, which is we will have more established vote centers. In this case, we'll have a total of 152 vote centers operating. So that is the update for the election. The other item that I will be presenting today, which is very important to all of us, is the various topics that have been discussed not only here at this board meeting, but also from members of the public. We will discuss variance between ballots cast and ballots counted. We will speak to the comparison of variance processes. We will talk about accuracy and maintenance of voter rolls. We will talk about scanning batches of ballots. We will speak to automatic signature verification, known as ASV. We will speak to Election Security Task Force. We will discuss reporting to law enforcement. We will also discuss voter registration data, and we will discuss election records retention, role of the Board of Supervisors, pre-election voting system testing, and election canvass and audits. Again, all of these derive from questions and or comments from the various Board of Supervisor meetings. First item I want to really focus on is variance between ballots cast and ballots counted. So I do want to start off by sharing with all of you that there is a local advocacy elections group that actually presented to myself in my office an audit that was conducted. The audit included, actually there were 2 audits that were conducted. One of them was the ROV, titled the ROV Reconciliation of the Proposition 50 election. So this really focuses on the November 4th, 2025 statewide special election. The other audit was very focused on a methodology, because we're using two different methodologies here that I'll be presenting here in a few minutes, but it presents a methodology where the local advocacy group is utilizing raw data derived from the number of ballots that are coming into my office. That is USPS ballots, that is vote center ballots, that is ballots that are being dropped off in our drop boxes outside. We have 2 drop boxes outside of our office. Also, any ballots that are coming in through any other means. So the main question that is being asked of me is, did the November 4th, 2025 statewide special election have a 45,896 ballot discrepancy between ballots cast and ballots counted? The answer to that is no, and I'll be demonstrating why not. The November 4th, 2025 statewide special election had a variance of 103 ballots, which is the difference between ballots cast and ballots counted. I will demonstrate this afternoon how I'm coming up with that number as well in the following slides, so that we do have a good overview of how these numbers are derived. But here I want to point out that I actually did a deeper dive into the audit presented to me by the advocacy group. And I'm going to share the following slide that will provide the comparison of variance processes between what I was provided and what we actually do at the Registrar of Voters office when we are doing our audits. So then other question is, how do you find the variance between ballots cast and ballots counted? That's a valid question, absolutely. We need to know how we come up with that. Well, the Registrar's office uses a precise process to track ballots cast at vote centers, and drop-off locations, and through the mail using the election information management system. I'm going to read the statement and then I'll come back and explain. A good ballot has been signature verified and is eligible to be counted. The total number of good ballots is then compared with the number of ballots counted by the Liberty Vote system to ensure accuracy and consistency. So the system that we employ at the Registrar of Voters, which was also employed by the local advocacy group, is exactly this. We are using good ballots, and we are utilizing 2 systems. Let's make sure that we understand that there's 2 systems. One of them is the election information management system. How that works is the ballots come in, there will be an operator, usually it's going to be a temporary staff member or one of our staff members, and they will review the signature on each one of those envelopes coming in from the USPS, coming in from vote centers, coming in from the drop-off sites. All of those various types of ballots will come in and funnel in through that system. That's our tracking system right there. When we're looking at the envelope, we compare the signature. It meets the eligibility criteria that the state has put out by the California Elections Code. And also, the ballot is timely. That ballot in the system is, for that voter, is made good. Okay, that's why we use the term good. These are good ballots. They're not raw ballots that just came into my office. These are good. They've been checked. So the good ballots are entered in the system. Any additional ballots coming in from voters, once you have a good ballot in the system, any other ballots will be automatically void by the system. That's why this is our tracking system for these ballots that are coming in. These are the good ballots. Okay, then we're talking about another system here, which is our election results, which are produced by the Liberty Vote system. Please note, that is the former Dominion voting system. The Liberty Vote system, I'll be referencing that a lot here at this board this afternoon and at this meeting. The difference between both systems, because it's really important to be able to differentiate what these systems do. So what the Liberty Vote system will do is, once the ballot has been signature verified, it follows the life of the ballot. It goes through precincting, which it is placed in a box with a precinct number. There's about 921 precincts that we had during the November 4th, 2025 election. We established about 921. That ballot will follow the life of opening. It'll be open because it's now good. We've identified that. It goes to opening. From opening, it will go into a large room where we actually are taking the envelope and separating it from the ballot so that we are actually preparing it to go into the scanning process. We prepare the ballot, it then goes to the scanning process, and the ballot then goes into a completely separate room where we have the Liberty Vote system. We have 10 scanners. We also have in that room the software necessary to be able to tabulate these ballots. So you have scanners, the ballots get tabulated, and that system is what produces my election results that I post every day starting election night at 8 p.m. Those are the first results that immediately get posted a few minutes after 8 p.m., about 8:20, no later than 8:20, and that's what you see coming out of that system. Two totally independent systems. The election management system keeps track of my envelopes as they're coming in. We verify eligibility. The Liberty Vote system simply provides our results once that ballot has gone through the life of the ballot, which is a good ballot. From there, then you have your total ballots counted. So you have your good ballots and your total ballots counted, and then you complete that cycle there. And of course, those ballots then make it into another room where they're actually stored for in the November 4th, 2025 election for 6 months. And for any federal elections, it's 22 months. But I want to make those distinctions. So I want to go back for a few minutes to the audit that was presented to me that was not the audit I just shared with you. That audit that I just shared with you is what we follow, and in a few more slides, you'll see where it derives from. Also, the audit that was provided to me by the election advocacy group, their numbers did not balance. It showed a variance. And the question is, why did it show a variance? We did exactly what the Registrar of Voters did in Riverside County. Folks, because there were ballots that were not included, and we gave those reports like we give any reports to any community member. We gave those reports to this group, and you were still missing 43 confidential voters, which could be votes from the sheriff, it could be the DA, it could be elections officials now. The law has changed. We as elections officials can also be a confidential voter. Also, you were missing conditional voter registration votes. Those are any voter during the 14-day period leading to the election that did not get an opportunity to register to vote on time by the 15-day cutoff. Then those voters become a conditional voter registration voter. And then you have provisional voters, which is on election day. If the voter moves within the county, then that voter receives a provisional ballot. So there's your 6,000 that you're still missing on your analysis. So I want to point that out, very important. If you add those numbers, you're going to balance exactly like we did using the Registrar of Voters methodology that we use. Again, we're using the election management system as one system, our tracking tool, as I call it, versus the Liberty Vote system. And I'll be showing you more slides so you can see how those work. Going back then to the audit that was presented to me by the local advocacy group, elections advocacy group, where they provided me multiple steps of the various types of ballots based on data that our office provided. So there's some categories like mail ballots received from drop boxes, ballots received from drop boxes at vote centers, conditional voter ballots received, in-person ballots, ballots received by facsimile, mail ballots, so on and so forth. The analysis, again, one of the situations that I would like to point out on this analysis is you are using raw data. That is, none of these envelopes have gone through any signature verification. In there, you're going to find spoiled ballots. You're going to have ballots that were never signed by the voter that need a cure. You will also find ballots that were, the signature does not meet the eligibility criteria, so the signature doesn't match. And they also require a cure letter, and so on and so forth. So many of the numbers here also show from documents that were utilized. And that's my next point on the slide. It is important to note that using ballot statements and vote-by-mail collection forms to estimate ballots cast is imprecise. Why? The office uses these handwritten forms as reference guides only when auditing. Why is that? Because these documents reflect raw, hand-counted ballots before full processing. They will go multiple ways once they arrive. Also, these are completed in the field by election officers during long work days. Let's keep that in mind. Folks get tired. It's on election day, it's 14 plus hours, sometimes 15, 16 hours, depending on distance. We're a huge county, 7,200 square miles. Folks get tired. There's a lot of folks working. Over 2,500 volunteers during a countywide election. That's a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of people. Also, these forms are handwritten, may include estimates or unintentional mistakes. I want to make that clear. Unintentional mistakes. They do happen. We also provide other forms of documents from our office, and we established this just a few elections ago. And the document that we provide is very much a form that is accounting for the various vote-by-mail ballots that are coming in from the USPS. And that is what we call daily mail intake forms. I have 2 shifts running at this office. We have, once the election hits, prior to election, about a week before, we are running the operation almost 24 hours, day shift and a night shift. It's very possible that the staff may not have recorded the numbers accurately on these daily mail intake forms. There is no law that requires me to do this. We do it to try to be transparent to the public so that they can see what our numbers look like. And in this case, these daily mail intake forms, again, very much like the ballot statements, the vote-by-mail ballot collection form. What's a ballot statement? That's a document at each vote center. We have 150 vote center. They run 11 days. And so therefore, you have a ballot statement per day that is completed by volunteers and also temporary staff at these vote centers. So you have a lot of folks touching these documents. The other document is the vote-by-mail ballot collection forms. At all 107 drop-off sites that we may have throughout the county, there will be folks that are documenting, handwriting information, counting ballots. Again, how many of us at times know that hand counting something will never derive the same number once, twice, sometimes even 3 times? It does happen. There will be some unintentional mistakes. We're only human. All of this is prone to human intervention, so therefore, as humans, we are not perfect. So what I'm trying to say here is the registrar's analysis is really an apples-to-apples overview. The third-party comparison is more of an apples, and if you want to call that a lemon, it's a lemon or an orange, whatever you want to call it. But it is, again, the problem here is the raw ballots that are being taken as the real number, and all of these documents that are being utilized to come up with those numbers, which many times we know they are completed by humans, or at least this we know they are completed by humans, and they are prone to, again, unintentional mistakes. So that is this first process. I'd like to go deeper now into the following table to show good ballots cast. And I'm not going to move away from, again, election information management system. 2 different systems. That's where these good ballots are coming from. And these were tracked in the election information management system based on location and type for the November 4th, 2025 statewide election. Category, we had mail. Total number of ballots. Again, we produced reports from the election information management system reports. That's where this data is coming from the system at our office. Total mail ballots, we made good. These were eligible. 370,127. Drop-off locations, which are staffed at city halls and libraries. We made good 123,534 ballots. Vote center drop-off, we made good 91,181 of those. Vote center in person, that is somebody who prefers to go to a vote center. We made good 51,347. That's how many voters we processed. Good. And then we also have a drop box. That is, we have 2 drop boxes outside of our office. We made good 14,785 ballots. Conditional voter registration ballots, we made good 5,907, and I had already explained the definition of conditional or CVR. Fax military or service members, they delivered ballots, and we made good 255 of those ballots. Confidential, we made good 43. And provisional, we made good 40. Add all those up. Again, these are documented in our election management system, which is our tracking system. 657,219. That's where the number comes from. I'm going to go ahead and continue with this analysis because it's very important. The following table shows total of ballots counted in the Liberty vote system. Please keep in mind, election information management system, totally independent from the Liberty vote system, formerly Dominion voting system. These are the scanners. I have 10 of them. So in this case, these are the final certified results coming from the website. And I do want to say that our board members receive an update from me from the moment I release results on election night, every hour, upon every hour until I leave that office, sometimes at 6 a.m. the next day with my staff. And the next day, on Wednesday, we are ready to post results at 6 p.m. These are the results that I'm posting every day, so our board members have the opportunity to view these results as I am posting every day through the certification period until I certified. For the November 4th, 2025 election, that was December 2nd. So this precincts reported, I shared that it was 921 precincts for November 4th, 2025. Voters cast. How many voters cast a ballot? 657,322 out of the 1.4 million voters for a total of 45.89% turnout. Okay? That's that number right there. This is very important. The County of Riverside Election Information Management System, IMS data, and Liberty Vote data are provided to the California Secretary of State, who is auditing all 58 counties. Ballots cast and comparing it to the ballots counted. So the California Secretary of State does the same analysis I do here locally at the Register of Voters office. That is, take the total ballots cast, and I do this before election night. I'm already looking at numbers. On election night, I really start doing a comparison, and then through the canvass period, it's every day we're comparing to see if there are any anomalies in the data. That is customary. And in Riverside County, again, we do that comparison. And again, the Secretary of State is doing the same thing on their end using VoteCal, which is the system that has been developed. It's the voter registration system developed where all 58 counties are now connected to VoteCal, and the Secretary of State manages VoteCal at the state level. We manage our EIMS at the local level. So total ballots cast, 657,219. Total ballots counted, 657,322. Folks, there's the difference, 103 ballots. What does that mean? That we had 103 less ballots credited or envelopes credited in the EIMS or Election Information Management System, and we had more ballots counted. Okay? We had 657,322. And that's what this data is telling us. We also talk about a 2% variance or industry standard. And the standard, as I understand it, the standard was adopted to encompass reasonable expectations of the difference in ballots cast and ballots counted. And this was, adopted by the California Secretary of State. They adopted this 2% industry standard. And ROVs are still able to certify an election even if they're above the 2% industry standard. There's nothing that stops an ROV from doing so. The SOS, or the Secretary of State, will work with ROVs whom they are above a 2% industry standard to lower that if necessary. In Riverside County, I'm very proud to say that our percentage difference variance is 0.016%, and the Secretary of State has also confirmed that with me. We are doing an amazing job in Riverside County. Don't know what else we could be doing different. I use a tracking system. I release results. All the information's there. So that's the variance that we see using the methodology that we follow under Elections Code 15302. The following table shows the variance among other large turnout counties in California using the same process. So these are large turnout counties. These are counties with 500,000 or more voters. So this is very important. Why? Because now you can see our neighboring counties: San Diego, Orange, Alameda, Riverside, of course, Sacramento, Los Angeles, Santa Clara, and San Bernardino. Look at the difference in ballots cast versus counted. Again, they have the same setup as we do. An election information management system, tracking each ballot. That is good. And then they also have the Liberty Vote system on the other side. Same thing, they're doing the same, and the state provides us this data. This is derived from the California Secretary of State, pulling the data from our own election information management system in Riverside County. You can see the numbers for yourself. You can see the percent variance. Folks, we are doing an amazing job. You can see it right there, 0.016%. Look what the other counties are showing. And again, this is county collected by the California Secretary of State. So I just wanted to show that to everybody in this room today. The following table shows the average variance among other large turnout counties in California, in all counties using same processes. So for Riverside, again, you can see where we're at, 0.16%. Large turnout counties, 500,000 or more votes, 0.069%. All counties, 0.107%, and all counties minus large turnout counties, 0.113%. Again, way below the 2% industry standard, which again, Secretary of State employs, and we follow. I'm going to have Matt provide a quick overview. I do want to introduce him, Matt Ceballos, our Assistant Registrar of Voters, so I can take drink a little bit of water. He's going to share the next two slides. Let me take a bit of water and breathe a little bit, and then I'll be back.
Thanks, Art. So we thought it'd be a good idea to incorporate this slide. I think it was stated at a prior board meeting that Shasta County was 1-for-1 ballots counted versus ballots cast. This data comes from the Secretary of State. It comes from the ballot statistics report. For the November 4th, 2025 election, they were in fact not 1-for-1. They had a difference of 11, which equates to a 0.017% variance. We were 0.016, so slight improvement. We actually wanted to dig a little deeper, look into that 11 number. Although we are a larger county, we still wanted to see how they got to that 11 number. And in doing so, one thing the Secretary of State does is they parse the total difference. So they look at the in-person difference, cast versus counted, and the vote by mail difference, cast versus counted. As you can see, Riverside, on the in-person side, the variance was 49. And on the vote by mail side was 54, totaling 103. Now, what the Secretary of State does is they sum those two numbers, unfortunately. I think the real difference to see the true variance, you need to net them. So if we get rid of that negative integer on 76 and we add those two together, Shasta's really at a 163 difference, or 0.25. So if that's the bar, and if that's the comparison, I'd say Riverside County is doing pretty good. And I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Art.
Thank you. So I now was able to breathe. Thank you so much, Matt, for that quick overview. So I want to go on to topic 3, which is the accuracy and maintenance of voter rolls. So this question has also come up. And the question that I've received is, how do you know the voter rolls are accurate? So voter roll maintenance is done daily. California Elections Code sections 2200 through 2227 mandates that my office update the voter roll, okay? These government agencies provide data for cross-referencing voter rolls, and that is the USPS National Change of Address. They provide NCOA files daily. The DMV change of address information is also provided to our office daily. USPS undeliverable mail, it's daily. When ROV mail selection material, it's very common. When we send out missing information letters, when we send out registration cards, or when ballots are sent out during the election period, that increases immediately. Undeliverable mail starts coming in. Mortality report for local and state data. Again, we get that the local monthly and the state quarterly. In addition to that, we have the felon cancellation reports from local and state data. That is coming in weekly. And again, the conservatorship cancellation reports from local and state data, we get that weekly. I do want to say that we've taken additional steps to ensure that we're going above and beyond, and that is the Registrar Office works with Experian, which is the National Credit Reporting Agency, to verify voter data is checked. The vote-by-mail vendor also performs verification to look for potential duplicate records and address discrepancies before we print official ballots. So that's very important. We're going above and beyond with our voter roll maintenance in Riverside County. And again, we plan to continue for the June 2nd election. We will be, again, using Experian, and we will be using the ballot print vendor to help us out. The other question that has come up frequently is, can you cancel a voter registration for non-voting? The answer is generally no. Effective January 1st, 2020, Assembly Bill 504 amended Elections Code 2200 to prevent cancellation of voters' registration due to non-voting. However, Elections Code 226 mandates the registrar change a voter's registration status to inactive if official election mail is returned as undeliverable by the U.S. Postal Service. If mail is returned undeliverable to the registrar's office, then the following steps happen. 1, a residency confirmation card is sent to the voter. 2, the voter's file will remain inactive until the voter contacts the registrar's office. And 3, if there has been no voting activity in 2 consecutive federal elections and the voter has not contacted the registrar's office, then the cancellation process begins. A cancellation letter is mailed to these voters. If no response from the voter within 15 days, the voter may be canceled then from the voter rolls. So you can see there's a lot of steps that have to be followed before we can cancel a voter under California law. Scanning batches of ballots, very important question that came up is, can batches of ballots be easily scanned twice with no way of knowing whether they were scanned more than once? The answer is no. To ensure accuracy and integrity, the following measures are in place. Temporary staff are thoroughly trained. They do quite a bit of hands-on training before we let them loose during the election. We hire between 25 and 30 temporary employees to work on the Liberty vote system. I'll make that clear on this slide. We're talking about the Liberty vote system, which is the 10 scanners and the software that actually tabulates. That's that room. We call it a ballot counting room. Supervision of the process is maintained by 4 senior staff members. We have them there for redundancy, but also to ensure that our processes are moving smoothly. A 2-person rule is enforced for all ballot handling, scanning, and documenting. Ballots are organized into pre-bundled batches of 250 cards or fewer. It's not ballots, it's cards. Sometimes we have a 1-card ballot, sometimes we have a 2-card ballot. Very important to distinguish before scanning. Only 1 batch is scanned at a time. Next batch cannot begin until the current one is verified. Supervisors cross-check and verify each batch prior to proceeding. Daily reconciliation audits are conducted to identify and investigate any anomalies promptly. Again, that's what myself and the assistant registrar are doing as we go through the scanning of ballots. A 1% manual audit comparing returned ballots to ballots cast is also performed to ensure consistency. And not only that, but we are mandated by California Elections Code to conduct a 1% manual tally to make sure that everything is consistent. We also use different color carts or are used as visual guides to show which items have been processed and which have not. I think what's important here is the reconciliation process compares the cast and counted number of precinct level at a precinct level. So again, are good ballots coming from our election information management system compared to the results coming out of the Liberty vote system? We look at that at a precinct level to see if there are any anomalies, as we want to make sure that we detect those for any potential duplicate batches. So that process is in place, and that is what we follow. The other big question that came out was the automatic signature verification, topic 5. How is automatic signature verification ASV used? Well, the answer here is ASV, or automatic signature verification, allows elections officials to process large volumes of mail-in ballots quickly and efficiently, reducing the time and labor required for manual review. It improves accuracy and consistency by applying uniform standards, minimizing human subjectivity in mistakes. When a signature doesn't match, when a signature is missing, it does require human review and is eligible for signature curing process. I would like to say that for the November 4th, 2025 statewide special election, we conducted a pilot project for automatic signature verification, and we do plan to do a full implementation for the June 2nd, 2026 statewide direct primary, statewide direct primary election, and which is coming up again in 112 days approximately. In Riverside County. Oh, but who's counting? I'm counting. I have to count. I'm counting. A very important number for me there. Okay, and we are on slide 22. I also want to point out that automatic signature verifications has a confidence threshold of 45, not a percentage, and it derives from a scale of 0 to 100. Any ballots that fall under a 45 threshold is reviewed by staff. Any ballot that is 45 or over is a good ballot. That's a positive, good confidence rating there. Riverside County uses a confidence threshold of 45 as it has been a proven industry standard by counties that use automatic signature verification, such as our neighbors, Los Angeles County, San Diego County, San Bernardino County, for example. The next item is the Election Security Task Force, topic 6. Have you created an election security task force? So the Registrar of Voters Office has created an election security task force in late 2025. The kickoff meeting was held on October 16, 2025 with partners including the FBI, the U.S. Department of Justice, Riverside County District Attorney, Riverside County Sheriff, and Riverside Police, and Riverside County Fire, Riverside County Information Technology, and others. Additional meetings will take place before future elections, and that is before the June 2nd, 2025 statewide direct primary election. Additional meetings, of course, will ensure ongoing collaboration and preparedness. The purpose of this task force is provide physical and cybersecurity of the election process, develop an election security playbook. Yes, we have a draft of the playbook, which we are going to be working with this task force in the next few weeks to get some eyes on this playbook. We will be discussing election incident response planning as well for our county and any other information that may be useful to our county. The next topic, 7, is reporting to law enforcement. Just want to point out that the question has been, what does the Registrar Office do when registration of ballot irregularities happen? So the Registrar of Voters reports any irregularities to law enforcement authorities, such as potentially voting twice lists that we provide to the district attorney after every election, if there was such a list, if we were to detect any voters potentially trying to vote twice. and we cooperate with law enforcement. Topic 8, voter registration data. I think this is a very important topic that, again, has been brought to, the question has been brought to us. Is voter registration data available to members of the public, and how is it provided? The answer is pursuant to Elections Code 2187, 2188, and 2194, voter registration information is available to qualified individuals for election, scholarly, journalistic, political, or governmental purposes. All requests to view, purchase, or use voter registration information are received by a written application, and also there is a small nominal fee for that as well when that's requested. And then California Elections Code of Regulations 1901 indicates or states to us that an end user technical support as the following: an elections office is not responsible for providing technical support to members of the public who want to convert the provided data into another format. That's been one of the concerns why we don't turn that data into another format. So the Registrar of Voters Office provides election data in TXT format. However, our staff or our team goes above and beyond and sometimes wants to help the person by providing another format which may be different than TXT, such as Excel or any CSV format. However, we prefer not to do that because data that is converted to other formats may be incomplete and or may not open correctly for the person. So we always advise get somebody that actually knows how to open your data so that you can properly view your data. We are now at topic 9. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Nelson. She is the Riverside County's Chief County Counsel, who will go over a few more slides, and then we will be at the end this afternoon. I will be coming back for any questions that the board may have at that point. I'll leave all my stuff. Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Supervisors, Mr. Van Wagenen, Mr. Kent, Mr. Perez, and Mr. Tran. My name is Deputy County Counsel Stephanie Nelson, and I'm here to present the last few slides. So topic 9, election records retention. Question: how long are election records kept before being destroyed? Election records are retained for a period of 6 months if it is a state and local election, or 22 months if it is a federal election. Destruction of election records must occur after the above time has passed unless one of the following occurs during the retention period, which is an election contest brought forward by a candidate on the ballot or a criminal prosecution, which is brought forward by the district attorney. Topic 10, role of the Board of Supervisors. Does the Board of Supervisors have the authority to certify the election results? No. The Board of Supervisors receive and file a certified statement of the election results from the Registrar of Voters and declare those elected under their jurisdiction. This is a ministerial duty, but this provides a public forum to declare the election results in the county. And just to note that the Secretary of State is the Chief Election Officer for the state of California. Pre-election voting system testing. Question: what testing occurs to ensure the equipment is working properly? The California voting system standards are intended to guide the development, testing, and acquisition of voting systems only. Now, this is taken verbatim from the California voting systems online, the standards. The use of the standards are intended for testing agencies, local election officials who are evaluating voting systems for use in their jurisdiction, voting system designers and manufacturers, and voters who are interested in the rigorous testing process that ensures accuracy and security in the elections. The 1 in 125,000 error rate that you've heard, I'm sure, it appears in the California voting system standards, but it applies only to the testing of voting county. You can hear me, right? Okay, I thought it went out, sorry. And the testing is conducted by the Secretary of State for certification. So just to reiterate, the 1 in 125,000 error rate is solely for development, testing, and acquisition of voting systems. It is not the standard for ballot processing because it was already implemented into the election process at the onset. before the machines are certified, before they even come to this county. And lastly, election canvass and audits. So what is the allowable error rate? There is none. There is no allowable error rate which exists under California state law. The Secretary of State, the chief elections officer of the state, sets an industry threshold, the 2% industry standard that you guys have also heard. The county is consistently and significantly under 1% for their elections, and the registrar performs the following audits to ensure that voting systems are operating correctly. So prior to election day, about a couple weeks prior, we have the logic and accuracy testing. We run a little bit of a mock election to make sure everything is scanning and tabulating as it should be, that all the machines are up and running and ready for the actual election that will happen in a couple weeks. After election day, and to confirm vote count, we have the roster audit, the 1% manual tally, and if requested, recounts, which in 2024, we had 3 recounts and none of the results changed. After the registrar follows the tasks of the official canvass, they can legally certify an election. So as long as they follow all of the tasks listed in Elections Code 15302, they can legally certify. This concludes my half of the presentation. Thank you.
Very good. So I am open to any questions. We know elections are complex. It's a lot of work, but I am open to any questions that you may have this afternoon.
Somehow, in our meeting, Mr. Medina and myself, you were able to, and I cannot repeat it, how you showed us the misconception of that 45,000. You talked about it, but take their numbers and show us, like you did, how they may have skipped to something or whatever happened.
Sure. So the difference where I believe stands is when the ballots are being accounted for in the daily intake logs. Those are USPS ballots. I believe that number is not the correct number that should have been listed on those logs. There may be differences. Why? Because as I pointed out, there's a lot of hands in the pot. In other words, there's a lot of staff working, and it's very possible that those numbers were just not recorded as they should have.
So that would have been the election staff?
That could have been, yes, that would have been our own election staff. We have temporary employees working on the.
So those are off the sheets that they were talking, that they took to
Correct.
do the audit was
Yeah.
off the sheets.
Yes. In the field, we have the ballot statement. Maybe it'll help if I describe. So the ballot statement is a document that goes to all vote centers for 11 days. There's one sheet for 11 days. Those forms have a place there where you can count the number of vote-by-mail ballots. You record that number on the ballot statement. That ballot statement information then comes back to our office, and that's what we will go back to and reference during our auditing process. And that is the document that's also provided to the folks, the Selection Advocacy Group to review. Then you also have another document, which is a vote-by-mail ballot collection form. These are forms that are created at ballot drop-off sites. We have 28 city clerks, and we also have the remainder, which are libraries and so forth. Those documents are completed by temporary employees that are out in the field collecting them and are working at these sites. So those forms, again, may come back, and the counts may be imprecise because, again, it's humans completing the document. They are physically counting the ballots, and again, there might be that situation that happens there. So that's the ballot statements, the daily mail intake forms, as we just talked about. That is where my staff try their best at collecting the number of envelopes, raw. Remember, all of this is raw data. The number of envelopes that are collected so that then we have some type of number, but there's never a guarantee that it's a precise number.
All right, could you put up slide number 8 again? 'Cause
Sure.
I think it kind of answers the chair's question, and you went through it kind of quickly, but I believe on the top half, you talk about the process you use. The bottom half, you
Yes.
talk about.
Yes.
So maybe touch on that slide again, the difference
Sure.
between.
So as I originally had pointed out, the way the methodology we use at our office is we are looking at good ballots. So we describe that. We have an EIMS system, and then we also have a Liberty Vote system that is, again, providing us our ballots that were counted. So those two are separate systems. But one thing that is important to know.
That produces a good ballot.
Yes, so the good ballot, again, is produced when we signature verify the ballot, and we enter that into the system, so now that's been documented and tracked in this election information management system.
So how many
That's a good
bad
ballot.
ballots do we have?
So we can have, so for example, you have the category of cured ballots. We had about 9,000 ballots or so, between 8 and 9,000 cured ballots, which includes missing signatures. It includes signatures that did not match, and therefore those voters are sent a letter and the voter never responds. And we use multiple ways to contact the voter via email if there's an email in the voter file, and or by regular U.S. mail.
That could have
And
been
then
the
you
45.
have spoiled ballots. So spoiled ballots are those ballots that, again, are not eligible to be processed. You have, what are the other categories? Voided. Yeah, you want to go ahead and,
But that whole number is not going to add up to 45.
yeah. No.
I'm trying to get back to the 45. So it really is just those sheets that somehow the errors. So what do you do with those sheets? Because that's what they did an audit on. So how do we justify doing those sheets if they're not accurate?
Yeah, so did you have a response?
No, it's because they are just raw counts. So they haven't hit the process yet, so.
They haven't been cured.
Well, we're comparing good to good.
I mean, not good.
The sort of third-party comparison is comparing good to raw. So these ballots, the wheat hasn't been separated from the chaff, so to speak. These ballots need to go through the central count process, go through the entire life of the ballot in order to be caught by the system.
And there's always a minimum of 2 people with those ballots at all times.
That is correct.
Minimum.
That is correct, Supervisor. Yep.
You can't start counting the ballots until you turn them into good ballots. And you have
That
2
is correct.
steps.
That's correct.
So if you're counting ballots before you have created a good ballot, you're going to get a much bigger number.
That is correct.
Yes. And,
Go ahead.
yeah, okay. So if I can try to understand it too, is, so we got those 2 systems, and then we have the system where, they're kind of counting out in the vote centers or in the field during that time. And so the discrepancy is the hand part, right? That they're not putting the right numbers, things like that. But also what I'm hearing though too from Supervisor Washington and others is that it's also, okay, so it's the vote centers and then it's the good ballots. Is that basically what?
Yes.
So the reason they have a higher number is because you haven't checked to see if it's a good ballot yet.
That is correct. They have not gone through the life of the ballot, which is exactly what you pointed out, Supervisors. They have not been signature checked, and therefore these are just raw ballots. Many of them will end up in the spoiled bin. Many of them will end up in the bin where we are not going to be able to count, the cure bin. So they will end up in various processes through the life of the ballot.
And then the Secretary of State checks your work as well.
That is correct. So that is what they do from the VoteCal side of things, which is the countywide voter registration, the statewide voter registration database that is managed by the state, and they pull our data almost in real time.
Art, can you clarify or expand on the cured ballots, what those are, and how candidates go about tracking down those voters, if you would?
Sure, absolutely. So most recently, I would say maybe about 4 elections ago, we actually implemented a new process. The former process was we were not able to keep track of who had already returned a cured ballot to our office. It was an inefficient process, so we went ahead and looked at that closely. I learned more about the process, and we found out that our election management system vendor had a process which would automate this particular situation. So now candidates are able to request a list almost in real time, again, because we are now scanning those letters as they come in, and we're able to identify which voter's signature is now good, because we have to make sure that we're following that. And then from there, the system automatically is now able to take from that bucket of everybody that was issued a cure letter, which is whenever your signature doesn't match, or whenever you're missing a signature, you forgot to sign your envelope. Then again, the system is able to identify which letters are now, or which ballots are being cured almost in real time again, where before we didn't have that capability.
And candidates or campaigns, how do they go about getting
Sure.
those voters? What do they do to
Yes.
get those voters
So
to
they
vote?
go into communities through when their campaign is active, and they'll go into communities to try to ask these voters to sign their envelope or to cure the ballot by providing us an oath that, again, many of these candidates are going door to door to be able to obtain these voters' information to find out if they have cured their ballots. Now, with this new process, it used to be that candidates had no clue whether or not these voters had cured their ballots, because we had no way of knowing that. Now we do have a way. So the cure lists that are requested by candidates are going to be by far more updated than they've ever been.
Another question.
Sure.
I heard the last speaker say that there were 3 recounts done in the last election?
Sure. It was for the November 5th, 2024 election. It was in December.
And in those 3 recounts, there was actually no change in the voter count? Not even one vote difference in all 3 of the recounts?
That is correct. So there were some adjustments made for adjudication purposes, but again, the votes did not change. What we actually had 3. We had the Beaumont Unified School District request a recount. We also have Herpa Valley City Council request one, and Beaumont Banning request one as well. It's been
And no
several
change,
months.
but by not even one single vote on all 3
There
of the
was no
recounts?
difference found in the final results, and we did a hand count 100% of those ballots. For the very first time in Riverside County, we had never done a recount using Voters' Choice Act, where ballots are all mixed in, and we had to go find every one of those ballots. So the team did an amazing job at finding those.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Perez?
Yes, thank you. So then, with all this being said, and going through this on a weekly basis for the last 2 years, the discussion about variance between ballots cast and ballots counted, comparing the variance, the accuracy and maintenance of the voter rolls, the scanning batches of ballots, and so on and so forth. Has all this been discussed and explained to the advocates?
So yes, we have held multiple meetings as part of the ad hoc committee, and we've also had meetings in our office here at these board chambers, to be exact. So yes, the answer is yes.
How often?
So the last meeting, if I recall right, was April 10th of 2025, if I recall
We had one
correctly.
after that.
Oh, we did have one. We did have one
Yeah,
after that.
We've had a couple since then.
Yeah, which was the one that you guys held in November. There was one in November.
I know, I was like fretful for that one, but
Yes, there was
Alright,
one in
so-
November.
So that being said, then what's the difference? What are they still what's the issue then? Is it just they don't believe what you're saying? What's going on here?
Yeah, I,
Careful what you ask for.
Oh, I wanna
Yeah.
know, because like,
All right,
this
Rita,
is getting
hand
old. This is getting old. This is getting old. So I
Yeah.
wanna know.
So Supervisor, what I believe the issue here is the two different methodologies that are being asked to be employed. So for register of voters, we follow the methodology that we are provided by the California Secretary of State Elections Code 15302. We follow that to the T. Unfortunately, the methodology that is being presented to us, it's not a methodology that it's anywhere codified and or law. I would like to say that there is venues, if there is an interest from any of these folks, that this become a law and how they are using raw data for us to be able to use and be able to do our audit. However, we are following the law, which is following the current audit process that we've been asked to follow.
Okay, so is it possible that them using the raw data that they could be correct?
And there's never going to be a one-to-one match, I can guarantee that.
Okay. It is what it is at this point.
All right, we have now, and let's, Chuck, I'm sorry.
Art, back on that slide, number 8. While you were talking about the good ballots, and I think you hit on something that really is at the essence of what our elections and our democracy is about. Only eligible voters get to cast a vote, and they get one vote. And so you talked about how if another ballot comes in from a voter that you've already counted a vote for, then that ballot is voided. Those are bad ballots, right, essentially. Do you have an idea how many of those you get in an election?
Yeah, so Supervisor, I don't have that number in front of me. I would have to look and see what that number looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it because I think really we've talked about the difference between a raw ballot and the good ballots, which one, you verify the signature, and then the Liberty vote system, what does that do again?
Sure. So the Liberty Vote system, we have 10 scanners in our ballot counting room that allows each ballot to go through the scanner, takes an image, and then that information also goes into software where each of the ballot contests are tabulated. And that's where I
That's where you get a count.
get my results. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one verifies the signature, and that one was the information management system, election information management system.
Correct.
Verifies the signatures. The second one is the Liberty vote system. Does it also take the ballots out of the envelopes?
It
No.
does not, no. Part of life of the ballot is, that's a different process where it goes through our mail sorter. The ballot goes through the mail sorter to be able to take an image of the envelope signature to be able to be processed by an operator. Once it's made good, then it goes into a precinct order, and then from there, they get sliced open. Then they go into a room where they're actually separated, and they're actually staged, ready to go into the scanning room, which is the Liberty Vote
Is where
system.
they count. And so if you just count all the ballots, I mean, we dumped it all in a big room, and it's a big heap pile, and you just start pulling them out and counting them, you're gonna come out with a much larger number.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, one voter, one vote.
Correct.
Anything else? Thrown out.
It's going to be void in our system. Correct.
Okay, we're gonna open this up. Thank you, Art, and your
Sure.
team. You guys did great. I'm sure we're gonna have to call back on you because I think some of your information, by the looks on faces, is going to be disputed. So, Greg, you've got some plan. Okay, I'm gonna be very leery. How many of you are planning to speak? It's not as bad as I thought. Thank you who aren't raising your hand. I appreciate you. You have your plan, and no one gets more than 3 minutes unless they've got somebody in the room to do the 3. Okay, let's get it going fast. This is our public speakers. He's taken over it. You got it?
I
he's
have slips that were delivered to the clerk.
Every speaker, after you're done, will you please have them fill it out? And anybody else who's not part of yours? He gave us an email, and I don't even have it on me. Oh, you got all the cards? Oh, excuse me. I'm going to sit back and let you go.
So, thank you. Your arguments were not unexpected, so I'm going to try to get to what we think are the root of the issue, and common ground, that's what we always try to start out with, is we want an accurate ballot election, and I think we're all going to agree there. The laws, I should have done this. I should have had my wife come up. Raka, you want to come up here? So can you see that slide?
Nope. Here it
Sorry
goes.
about that. Okay, so you've seen this before. Laws governing elections. This is common ground. Voter rolls must be accurate. Only eligible voters may vote. System must be highly accurate. And of course it has to be highly accurate, because if you have a close election, you don't know who won if it's not highly accurate. And ballots cast must equal ballots counted. In the way that I explain this, which I think is so simple and everybody can understand, is you guys conduct a valid election every time we have a board meeting. You vote for lots of money for different people, and it's valid. And how do we know it's valid? 5 voters, you push a button, RCIT puts up the results. It's always 5 or 4, it's never 7. If it was 7, you would say, I'm sorry, we cannot allocate that $5 million or whatever it was. You would say that's an invalid election. That is simply what we're doing. We are accounting for all the ballots that come into the system, and there cannot be any more votes than the ballots that came into the system. So, never do this right. Thanks. So I'm just going to set this up. So what our audit does is we simply accounting like bookkeeping, all the ballots that came into the door through the mail-in, the drop boxes, the mail, the fax, the confidential, the in-person, we account for them. How do we account for them? With the public records requests that we do with Art, and he gives us the records. And that's how many we can account for. But then we look at the machine count, and the machine count is 45,896 more than we can account for that are documented. And so all we're asking Art is, where's the paperwork? Where are the ballot statements for 45,896? And that's our question, that's our request. Because if it doesn't match, like you know in your own elections, it's got to balance. You can't have more votes than voters. You can only have 5 in your election. They can't have more than 611, 426 in the Prop 26 election. So thank you.
Good job, dear. Greg, can I have that piece? Your numbers aren't matching with what Art did, and I'm just
Correct.
playing with them.
And how
I
come?
want to see it.
Wait a minute.
I'm just asking, I'm trying to compare it.
Look at them again, just so.
We always get along. Okay.
Just put it up.
Okay, so the answer is that little wheelie cart back there in the aisle. That little wheelie cart has all the copies of all the ballot statements we received from the ROB organized, and that's what we use. So if there's other documents that we did not get, we are willing to add them in, but that's what we got. Yep.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Is Errol Koshowitz still here? Errol?
He stands out.
Okay, next would be Cindy Allen. Cindy was given time from David Allen and Sharon Neal for a total of 9 minutes.
Thank you.
Are Sharon and David in the audience? Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is Cindy Allen here. I'm going to talk quick. I'm from Temecula. I'm a concerned citizen, and I just want to be able to be sure that I know I can count on my vote count. My very first experience was when I was 18 voting, and I have taken it very seriously ever since then. I've taken the day off, whatever it took to vote, and I knew one day when I retired, I would work at vote centers and volunteer in my community. So now is the time. So in the 2024 recall election, I took the time to observe at the Temecula Voting Center located at the school district offices. This was for the recall of Dr. Komrosky. I was very impressed with how well-run the voting centers were. I was an election officer in the November 2024 elections, and I worked at the Grace Melman Center. I had received thorough training regarding the center, and I took my obligation very seriously, as did everyone that I worked with, as well as our leaders at the center. This is one of the reasons I believe the forms that, I have a form up here, I'm hoping you can all see it. These forms at the end of the evening, after we've worked hard, we're super tired, but it was drilled into us, no ballot shall be on its own. There would always be 2 or more people. So at the end of the evening, we sorted them all out, we counted them, and then a second person double counted them, while other people watched on. We sorted the CRV envelopes, the mail-in ballots, and the paper ballots. At the end of the evening, each couple that had counted them would ensure that that number got here onto the in number A, where it says 697, and then that was verified by those that counted it. In box C, 81 votes, and that was verified by those that counted it. And in H, those that counted it, it was verified. So I have confidence that the numbers that are on these ballot forms, even though staff is tired, I feel that they're accurate. At least I can speak from my voting center. I did want to acknowledge from the time I started observing to the time I worked at the voting center, things had improved. I could see little steps that the ROV was taken. And so I know they've been listening to the REIT team over the course of time. A couple questions I have to Art. If you say you don't trust the outside forms, then why are we using them? And then how come you don't verify back at the ROV when the locked bags come back with those statements in them? This many ballots, this many on the little pieces of paper. Why aren't they verified back here at the ROV? Why are they separated and never used again? That right there might be able to nip some errors in the bud. Okay, thank you. Now Sharon, take it away.
Yeah, hi. I'm going to talk about the collection forms for the drop boxes and the intake form back at the ROV. Now, it's been said to us that none of these ballot statements, neither at the voter center or at the drop boxes, are an integral part of the voting system, and I beg to differ on that because I know that the ballot statements from the voting centers are used in the roster audit, and that takes place after the elections. Now, I want to talk then about the drop boxes, and you can clearly see the numbers. They have a seal, they've recorded the seal, the collector's name, his signature, and as he signs, you know, that's under perjury, the observer's name and the signature. Now, it's kind of what Cindy just said. We trust these. These are employees of the ROV, whether they be temp or permanent. But we trust that they have been told and trained that everything they do will be looked at, and it is a verified signature and a authentic, that's one of the things that was questioned, an authentic accounting of what was in that box that day. And the drop boxes are collected every day, and the real busy boxes are collected 3 times a day. Okay, let's talk about the intake. Art, I have to say, my heart just dropped when you said that we could not rely on the numbers of the intake form. Again, we have to trust. This is the number that comes in, the number of ballots, the vote by mail ballots from the post office. And they are counted, and they're counted through the blue crest machine that doesn't make any mistakes. So when I look at the top of this, I see a date, and then I see the mail. I don't know which one you're looking at, but there's a figure there that looks like a small figure. It's 51. I have to trust that nobody made a mistake. This is valid, and if they have noticed a number of mistakes on these, they need to get out there and retrain or change that employee or whatever, because that's what we got our numbers on. For our audit, we use those mail numbers, the amounts. Any questions? Any questions?
I think we're ready to hear the next speaker.
Okay. If you think of some later, I'll be happy to tell you. Answer. I don't know everything, but you know, I'm a mom, so that's close.
Jim Niederrecker. Jim was given time from Dan Brown and Brian Kerr. Are Dan and Brian in the room? Thank you.
We love show and tell. I got 7 of these. Good afternoon. I like show and tell. We got 7 of these. We got 3,500 pieces of paper here. It took hundreds of hours to collect this. I'm going to describe how we did the audit and why we think it's legitimate. So we did a process audit. In a process audit, the auditor must collect objective evidence that demonstrates the process meets requirements. We collected that evidence based on 15302D, where we need ballots cast have to equal votes counted. Cindy and Sharon just did a great job describing these records, all 3,500 of them. All the records that we asked for, we got. There were none missing. The ballot counts from all these records were input into Excel spreadsheets and tallied. To ensure no math calculation errors, the spreadsheets were validated. I learned that from medical device history, 35 years. We also collected ballot counts pertaining to conditional ballots, ballots received by fax, and confidential. I think Art said we were missing some of those. Nope, we're not missing any of those. All of these represent what the ballots that were input into the system. So Art said, yo, these are raw data? Yeah, they're raw data. That's what came in. We have physical records of the ballots that showed up. Then we provided the number of ballots rejected or not counted, such as ballots with mismatched signatures that were not cured. So Art said, well, maybe we made a mistake because we didn't account for the rejects. The rejects are in there. And thank you to Elizabeth. She helped us make sure we had that correct. So we've got rejects from the provisionals, the conditionals, and all other ballots. That accounted for about 16,000 rejects. That count was deducted from the ballots that came in. So now we know the ballots that are good. So Art made the point that we need to count good ballots. We know what the good ballots are because we had what came in and we know what was rejected. The allowable error for this process is 1 error in 125,000 ballots tabulated. Steph Nelson implied there is no requirement. There is a requirement, and that's it. None of the last 4 elections even came close to meeting that requirement. Art had a table that showed the percentages. None of those percentages meet the requirements that need to be met. Now, we recognize that Art didn't train this system, he didn't program it, and he didn't pick it. But he's got to live with it because that's what we got. So we need to make it work. The statements, it's been claimed that these statements are outside of the system, they're error prone, and Cindy and Sharon did a real nice job of explaining the fact that they are reliable. There's 3 election codes, and the roster audit all point to the fact that these statements are part of the process. The vote center ballot statements and the vote by collection forms are independently counted by 2 people. I'll bet Chuck and Karen a steak dinner at Dwayne's, if I give you 100 ballots and you count them, and you give that stack to Karen, I'll bet you could both come up with a count that matches and you could write it on a form. This is not difficult. I watched a group of people, I watched 2 people count ballots at the Melman Library, and they had a big stack. It was a couple hundred. They went through twice, they checked them, and then the lead came over and said, well, that's a lot, let's check them again. So those got counted 3 times. So this process is not that hard to count pieces of paper. The USPS forms, everything that comes in has to go through the mail sorter, and the mail sorter counts very accurately. They get a number and they put it on the page. So if that's a human error, then what other human errors are they making throughout the process? We think that process is very robust. So we think the use of these statements makes perfect sense, and we think they're accurate. There was a mention that there could be errors on these statements. We made sure that none of the data that we're using off those statements was part of a math error. So that's not a viable error mode. What's interesting is the staff knows that these statements are no good, but they never interviewed any of the leads, they never interviewed any of the people making the counts. They just know these statements are not accurate, but they did no investigation. And we know the Blue Crest sorter knows how to count. And they know these statements are unreliable, but in the 3 audits that we were able to complete, the ballot counting errors are all cumulatively based to the low side, resulting in thousands more ballots counted than cast. If I'm going to have random errors in counting, wouldn't some be high and some be low? That's not the case. Every time we do this, we get more counted than cast. So they're always counting to the low side? Doesn't make any sense. And you've got 3,000 statements. That means you've got 3,000 counting activities with 2 pairs of people, and they always made a mistake on the low side? Does that make any sense? We don't think so. The 2% industry standard, Steph Nelson mentioned it, the 2% industry standard applies. It was probably 4 weeks ago I stood here and said, no, the Secretary of State said there is no 2% industry standard. I didn't bring the email that I have from the Secretary of State so I could give it to you to show that that doesn't exist. But I'm going to send it to you so you can see that the 2% industry standard doesn't exist. Mr. Tran and our team are going to meet in about 2 weeks or so, and we're going to talk through this accuracy standard, and so we'll be able to put this to bed. Steph said that there is no allowable error rate. That makes absolutely no sense. You have to have an accuracy standard for a state or a local election. You can't say any error is okay. Supervisor Medina, you got elected, what 3,500 or some number? We can't have thousands of errors and then not know if we really are doing if we're getting an accurate result. So we're going to figure that one out in 2 weeks. It was mentioned that the ROV does roster audits. excellent, they have to do them, the law says so, but the 2024 general election roster audit failed. The primary election, presidential election 2024 failed. So I'm going to give you a piece of paper today that shows the 2024 general election. Roughly 125 of 150 of the vote centers failed to reconcile. It's not that hard. You get a card, person comes in, signs the card, they sign the roster, and they vote. You should have the same number of ballots, same number of cards, and same number of signatures on the roster. 125 or out of 150 or so failed. So they're doing the roster audit, but it's not working. We mentioned the ASV pilot. There was no report. The 45 confidence threshold, it's too low. We need a measurement capability study to really understand what that machine is doing. That machine is in this case, it accepted roughly half the ballots that went through. Well, is that okay? Did it really do a good job? We don't know, because we don't know how accurate it is, and we don't know how accurate the manual reviewers were that looked at those that got rejected. We need to know exactly how it's working. We need a measurement capability study. The vendor should have one, and we should be looking at it so we know what we're doing. We don't want to automate it and make things worse. So in closing, I think the ROV must document their reconciliation process. You all should see the numbers before you accept it. Art's numbers are different from my numbers, and I used the reports out of EIMS that I was told to use with Elizabeth's help. So I think all the numbers that I got out of EIMS are accurate. His numbers are now different. So we need to see what reports he used so we can see where he got his numbers, so we can try to figure out why we're so far off. His error of 103 doesn't mean. I'm going to share with you. The one is dated December 8th is out.
Sherry Franklin. Sherry was given time from Desiree Ferraro. Is Desiree here? Thank you.
Okay. I want to start by making one thing very clear, that we're not here to point fingers at people, okay? We're not here to attack people. We are pointing fingers at systems, processes, and possibly computers that are simply not adding up. We've been trying to shed light on these concerns for some time, echoing warnings raised by your own auditor consultant, Neil Kelly. Mr. Kelly's report highlighted critical vulnerabilities, including weak standard operating procedures and a lack of an audit controller review. I'm glad to hear that we now have a formal multi-agency task force. It looks like that was started. That's awesome, thank you. And then apparently a security election playbook. Those are great. I hope that we can move forward on those other high-risk security alerts also listed from Neil Kelly, who's reported on that twice to you guys. But ultimately, when one ballot gets to the registrar of voters, it shouldn't become more than one. The raw data shouldn't grow. Yet we have a situation where one ballot suddenly has a baby, and now there are more ballots counted at the ROV than the paper trail can account for. Hundreds of ROV workers sign forms declaring the truthfulness of their counts, like we just mentioned, but only for those numbers to be magically changed once they enter some computer systems. The proof is in the paper. Thanks to California's mail-in ballot system, we have a physical, robust trail that can resolve these discrepancies. So let me remind you and the public again what our audit showed. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, these are our numbers from 2024 to 2023. You can see the differences there, but we found 33,000 in 2024 and 45,000 in 2025. I'm sorry, 45,000 in 2025. Using our independent audits where we gathered the publicly available records, which is now called raw data, during the election, we have tangible paper receipts from the ROV's own documentation to verify what was physically cast against what was counted, spoiled, or invalidated. We accounted for all those ballots that were not good. We accounted for the not good ballots, the mismatch, the damage. We took the raw data and we removed those bad ballots. So what's wrong with raw data if you count those rejected ballots, which we did? How did the ROV get more voters than the raw data? Again, the proof is in the paper. In fact, here is what the ROV said in their own reporting. This is from their EMS system. You notice the number 651,000? Please take a look at the screen. Their good ballots listed right there at 651,000, and yet they certified 657,000. Again, even their own accounting has more ballots that came in and counted than actually have proof of. This is their ROV ballots returned by return date, also showing their own numbers of being more than came in. Let's see. Skipping along here. Okay. So essentially the logged voters electronically, they logged these voters electronically using their EMS system, which I showed to you in this form here. This is their EMS reporting. Okay, but any computer can be programmed to do whatever you want it to do. But the proof is in the paper. Either this system is flawed by inaccurately inflating counts, or ROV employees have made tens of thousands of errors, over 33,000 in 2024 and 45,000 in 2025. The raw data is still only 625,000 voters. It should never multiply. You can't have it both ways. Either the machine is wrong or the people are wrong, but they're not matching. Supervisor Washington, you can count those paper ballots. They are there right now. You can count them and count them again. And if you counted them, you'll never get to the ROV's number of 651,000. They only took in 627,000 ballots, accounting for the 16. There's never going to be 657,000 ballots that you can find on paper, okay? So I urge you to mandate a full manual count of those paper ballots, or even for future elections or audits, reconciling all those methods under Election Code 15302. Again, the proof is in the paper. All right, I want to tell you about our guest. I have a few seconds to introduce him to you. We brought this gentleman who's the actual registrar, so he's our counterpart for Art up in Shasta County. He told us earlier today that he does get very little guidance from the Secretary of State, actually, with regards to SOPs, that he actually has a lot of control of what he can do within the law. So he set some standards and established procedures that are within the election code that reconciles the ballots with not multiplying them once they get into the ROV. Please welcome Neil Campbell.
Before you leave,
please.
can you go back to that slide where you show the total number of ballots that you say were cast?
That one from 2025? Yeah. Is this the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying that the registrar is saying that 657,322 ballots were cast,
That's their certified number, yes.
and you're saying it was only 627.
That's the raw data that we collected, yes.
And then you subtracted another 16,000 from that.
From their mismatched, yes.
Why doesn't he have that number? I mean, if he came up with 657, how did you come up with 627?
We told you how we collected ours. He uses the EMS system, but we use the paper.
Like all the ballots? You counted all the ballots?
All the envelopes, before they opened them. We can't open them. We never see what's in there. Every envelope that came in, we counted every envelope. And this is the number we got, 627.
And you couldn't have been off? Could you?
They're his numbers in paper.
627, you said that those are your numbers.
I'm sorry, those are the numbers that we got from his records.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. Clint Curtis.
Clint Curtis, are Nancy Geyer and Stephen Geyer in the room? Both, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Name's Clint Curtis, programmer, NASA, DOT, all the Ds and a lot of the Fortune 500s. Election law attorney. I was the firm in Florida that actually filed the 2016 congressional contest complaint. So a little bit of experience in that, and I am the ROV of Shasta County. Essentially what is going on, apparently, is that you have someone who believes computers and someone who wants to do forms and paper. I can't tell you which is right. We do forms and paper and people in Shasta County. We count better in Shasta County, I guess, because ours come out dead even. Now, if you run it through the little computer thingies, right, it might say something different, but we hold no stock to that. We've actually counted our ballots and counted our voters, so our voters match perfectly. Our balancing was perfect. How did we do it? Was it some miraculous fancy thing? Not really. What we did is we have made it so we have cameras that we put over the ballots, the tabulator, and another counting session, and every ballot that comes in that doesn't have some sort of marking on it that would cause it to be kicked out, you know, because you can't expose the voter's identity. So all the generic ballots, everyone is counted on camera before it ever goes in the machine. That means nothing can be added, everything is nice and tight, and the voter can see it. This is live streamed as well as recorded. The voter can see it as it's happening. They can recount it at their leisure. So someone could sit down and watch the video and actually recount all the ballots themselves if they wanted to. Same way with recalls. If you have a recall election, you can eliminate a lot of them because people that want to see if their vote was correct, they can actually sit down and watch it and actually check their race, and they will know. And that will eliminate all these problems. Shasta County, I don't know if you ever saw the news, but it was kind of a war zone. It was a bad place to go. Everybody was yelling at each other and fighting. That's all gone. It's pretty much gone because everybody can see everything. We also increased our observation. So now the people can observe it, not just online and not just by recording, but we can put them right in the position to watch what's going on, not through a window 30 feet away, but sitting right behind the staff person. So we have nothing to hide, and that made it all go away. Now, this video by itself does nothing unless it's checked. Hard Inter Civic was the people we used, and they knew we were doing this, and so they were on board and said, you know, unless somebody else plays with our machine, this will be accurate. And they kind of have to be, because now we have a video of what's going on before it ever hits the machine. And it was accurate. Does that mean it will be accurate every time? No, it's going to be accurate if you check the video. But if you stop checking the video and you start trusting machines, that's when it goes bad. How do I know machines are bad? If anybody has seen anything about me, I was the programmer. I worked with the Bush folks back in 2000. And the Speaker of the Florida House, Jeb Bush's running mate, came forward, and he wanted me to design, because this is for electronic voting machines, the prototype for the machines. In that prototype, he requested that there be some sort of way that a person could manipulate that code so you could select who won in what race. Easy to do, right? As a programmer, you can do anything. It's my game. I can do anything I want to do in there. So I said, okay, here it is. Knocked it out in a couple days, handed it to him, said, this is why you can never use computers, because you do not have the ability to catch them. You can't check them. They move too fast, and they hide everything. And so, and I even showed him the logs, because, you know, I wrote the logs. Well, logs don't really exist. The only thing that exists is what I make exist in that program. So when I had the logs of what had occurred, when I made the flip, I changed the logs. It's not a problem, it's very easy. Same way with ballot images. There's no such thing as a ballot image. There is simply stuff that I build and make happen. And if I want to move it around, I can move it around. I can alter anything. So if I want this vote to go over here, it's actually extremely easy to do so. One of the things I did the Aster reports, which was all of the video satellite imagery of the planet Earth, and they were good, except they had flaws in them. They had spikes in them, which, you know, made them unusable for airplanes, because you're flying along at 500 feet and suddenly this, you know, 2-mile spike. Well, it's not really there. It's just an error. So I went through and put it together and actually eliminated the things I didn't want to and rewrote the files. It's the same thing with a ballot image. There's nothing to it. So if you want people to have trust in the elections, if you go to this system that I'm using in Shasta County where they can see everything, they will have trust in elections because they will see everything. They'll know that their vote actually counts because they can watch it happen, live streamed as it's happening. And that is what will give them confidence. Any questions? None? That's amazing. Okay, thanks.
Michael Pfeiffer, followed by Veronica Langworthy.
I understand. Okay. My name is Michael Pfeiffer. I should go ahead. I practiced law in the state of California for almost 50 years. Right now, I'm not an elections attorney. I'm a banking compliance attorney. I'm very familiar with the kinds of compliance requirements that are imposed upon financial institutions for protection of the citizens. And I wanted to address two of the topics that were addressed in the presentation by the ROV. First one is topic 12, having to do with the election canvass and the audits. And my point there is simply that you can say things in a slide that can be true on their face, but can also be misleading and can also be subject to different views. One of the things that It's often done as what's called a straw man argument. I'm very familiar with those, having practiced law and been a litigator in the county, in the state for this long a time. That's what you see on topic 12. What is the allowable error rate for election voting systems? Well, the answer that's given is there is no allowable error rate which exists under state law. And the ROV uses that statement to then launch into, since there's no allowable error rate, they can come up with their own, or it's dictated by the Secretary of State, or it somehow can be contrived. In many ways, I could agree with the statement that there is no allowable error rate, and focus on the word allowable. There is no allowable error rate. When you're counting votes, if you go to your bank and you have, say, a deposit of $1 million and you ask for that money back and they give you $45,000 less than you put in, and they say, well, that's the allowable error rate. You're not going to feel real comfortable with that. There is no allowable error rate. We've posited 1 in 125,000, but I believe it's even less than that. I believe it's 0. And where is that in the state law? Well, we know 15302 of the election code simply states, the official canvass shall include, but not be limited to, the following tasks: reconciliation of the number of ballots counted with the number of votes recorded. Reconciliation, they have to match. The second point, and I don't have much time, but I'll quickly address it, is the straw man of topic 10, where they say, does the Board of Supervisors have the authority to certify the election results? That's not the question. The question is, does the Board of Supervisors have authority to supervise the elections and the operations of the ROV? And the answer is absolutely, without a doubt, yes. You're not the puppets of the ROV. You are not the puppets of the ROV. You have the authority over them under
Veronica Langworthy, followed by John Thomas.
Day. The 5 of you in hearing, I hope. Finally, a public meeting. The first to present his case seems right until another comes along. We are coming along, and we are saying there are still concerns. And we hope that you are hearing those concerns. At the beginning of the meeting, you said you want to feel good and confident in the system, that you want people to come out and vote. That's the big idea. Well, darn it, I hope everybody comes out and votes, because the more eligible U.S. citizens who vote, who have access to vote, that is one more piece of evidence to see if these things are being counted properly. So they better, all U.S. citizens that are eligible to vote ought to be getting out to vote. And so I challenge every registered voter in our county that is eligible to vote to get out and vote for this upcoming election. And the second thing is that I would love to have another meeting to go over these numbers that are still seeming confusing, because all the documentation is from the ROV. The raw data we got shows that ballots cast. This chain of custody, that when you go into a vote center, you sign, there is a chain of custody to protect our vote, to take it to be counted. And if there's a problem with the paperwork, that means chain of custody is broken, and this is not a full, true, and correct election. The other part of it, now I've got to think for a minute, is that the officials do sign, and I think we have phenomenal people in our county. They're doing the best we can with a system that isn't working. And as a special ed teacher, if I had a individualized plan and I had to set a goal for a student and see if they were making the goal, if they weren't making it, that meant something needed to be revised. Is this election administration plan for vote centers a unwieldy system that no matter how hard our registrar works, our elections offices work, it's not going to work out, because the system is not a good task analysis. It's not going to function. I mean, if you were off on your flight, you'd be dialing in 7777 right now, because that's a mayday. There's a problem with the system. And this is what we're trying to say to you, and something needs to be done. And I hope that our county is the heroes that speaks up and says, the Voters' Choice Act that was implemented in 2019 because of what the previous Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, put in place before he left to go do another political thing outside of the state, would be looked at seriously, look at the numbers, look at the data that are registered, the most
John Thomas, followed by Yvonne Mendez.
How many more speakers do we have?
3.
Don't you like being towards the end? Don't you like being towards the end?
It's great.
Yeah.
I ask that you excuse my attire today. I came straight from work. I want to read to you a Facebook post that I made earlier today. I want every legal voter who sees this to understand something. We will never again have a fair election in this country if we don't fix our deeply compromised election system. We must eliminate electronic vote counting machines, or at least make these machines and their software open to the scrutiny of trained and qualified inspectors. We must also stop conducting vote by mail as a matter of course. Vote by mail creates too much opportunity for fraud to be a primary practice. We must ensure every person registered to vote is legally entitled to vote. That means showing ID to register and to cast your vote. We must end motor voter schemes, as these contribute to people who are not legal voters being registered to vote. We must ensure those entrusted with running our election system are doing so with integrity and commitment. I personally participated in an audit of an election in which nearly 56,000 more votes were counted than actual ballots were cast. This is in only one county. This is unacceptable by federal law and must be addressed. I urge you to contact your elected officials at all levels and urge them to live up to their oath of office by supporting election integrity. The very survival of our republic depends on it. Thank you.
Yvonne Mendez, followed by Rita Sandor.
Hello, everyone. My name's Yvonne Mendez. Thank you for your service, and you serve we the people. I'm here, and I'm wearing my red, white, and blue because I was denied my right to vote at a library here in Riverside County. And thanks to Karen Spiegel and other people that I reported, when I went back to vote, everything was red, white, and blue. But I will tell you, it was an eye-opener for me to get involved in these polling places. And I implore each one of you to go and audit these places. I showed up early when I worked one time, and the door wasn't even locked. And I was working at a gym center, and I was the first one there, and the guy opens the door, and I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, aren't you here for the voting?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to go in that room. Nobody's here yet," like dual custody. That was one thing that happened. I counted one day where during lunch, people came in and wanted to vote, and there was a discrepancy on their address or changing who they wanted to vote for because it wasn't on their ballot. They only had one computer that they could go to and pull their information that had to be done. You know, they had to pull out their information to prove who they were. They had only one IT guy running, like, I don't know, 5 locations, which was impossible for that IT guy to truly come and service. So that day there was about 30 people that came in for lunch that didn't get to vote. So I think we need to get better at that. And also myself, I went in, I actually checked 7,000, I contested 7,000 ballots for people that didn't even live in the United States. I signed an NDA, and I'm proud to say that I did 7,000 of them. People that were voting from other states, from landfills that didn't even belong here. So let this be a lesson to each one of us here and them that are, who's ever policing whatever we're doing. I know you all look around, but I truly love this country and want to go one ballot, one vote, voter ID. I grew up in Ohio where I had to show my ID And I'm a true patriot, and I love to be here. And I truly, truly want fair elections in Riverside County. Hopefully, we'll set the precedent. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Rita Sandor. Rita will be our last speaker.
I'll try to be direct and to the point.
You always are.
Karen, thank you for calling this meeting. I've had the opportunity to listen to the last few that we've had speaking. Sherry Franklin and Chris Curtis and Michael Pfeiffer, thank you so much. You're good Americans. When 2020 came and we were all told that we would be having our elections by mail ballots, I knew that that was the easiest way to break the law. The easiest way. I missed having the good election process that we had. You'd go to your local school, you'd go to your fire station. You knew the people, they knew who was going to show up. I've been working with Election Integrity Project for the last decade. We're at a point where we don't know what's going to happen next. We've got election coming up for governor. We've got elections coming up for the midterms soon. And the people do not believe that their vote counts. And that is the most sad thing of all, because when you believe that your vote will not count on the end of the election, you sit. And you let that by-mail ballot just get underneath everything else until it's finally thrown away. I have people asking me to take their votes in all the time, people that are in wheelchairs, people that are ill of health. I'm an insurance agent with 450 clients for the last 35 years in California. I've never seen this much sadness that people do not believe the votes count. We need to do something. We need to go back to the kind of elections we had. There was no reason for this. COVID's long gone. We all know where to go and vote. That's it.
You're eager, I know it.